Aloha, everyone, and welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started here shortly. So go ahead, kick back, relax, and we'll get started soon. Hello, everyone. If you're just joining us, we are going to go ahead and get started here shortly. So go ahead, kick back, relax, and we'll get started soon. Aloha and welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're going to go ahead and get started shortly. But for now, go ahead and kick back, relax, and we'll get started soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We appreciate you all taking time out of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending what time zone you all are joining us from. We are so excited to have, two of our staff to assist with answering questions about placement exams. My name is Amber Owens. I'm one of the admission counselors here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And I am so excited that we have Derek joining us here. He is the director for the Advising Center of the College of Arts, Languages, and Letters. For attendees, just a few reminders. Just remember that you all can see us, however, we cannot see you. At the bottom of your guys' screen, you will see is there's an option to go ahead and put questions into the Q&A. Definitely make sure to use that Q&A function, as we will not be answering any questions that are put into the chat. So any questions, put them in the Q&A, and we are going to have a Q&A section time at the very end, so we'll definitely try to get to as many questions as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Derek, and thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Amber. Aloha, everyone. Again, my name is Derek Furukawa. I am the director of the Advising Center for the College of Arts, Languages, and Letters. Hold on a sec while I just kind of get the screen up here for you. All right. So I'll be going over placement exams for today. There's a lot of information to cover on there. But during that time, our staff is also here to be able to put some of that information into the chat for you, because we've got a number of links and things like that that you're going to see on the presentation. But then that way you'll be able to kind of click on them yourself if you wanted to look into them further. And in addition to that, we'll also have something at the end when we do a follow-up that will give you all that information as well, to be able to see what you can actually access for that information and those details that are there. So with that said, what I'm going to go ahead and do is, first of all, to give you a sense, because I know that I'm already beginning to see like there may be a question that pops in here or there. So I want to give you an overview of what's going on first. So for today, what we've got is really just a quick overview of what are these placement exams? What is it that's going on with them? Why do I keep hearing about them? Probably the bigger question that you all want answered is, do they pertain to me? So we'll kind of address some of those questions within there. There are different types of exams. So we talk about the math placement exam, then we'll talk about physics placement. We'll talk about the pre-chemistry assessment, talk about a bunch of the different language assessments that exist and the placements that they have, and then have time to answer questions at the end as well. You'll notice the bottom of the screen that I have on here, there is a link to the gohawaii.edu /07J. That is a link that will get you to the page from our catalog that talks about, hey, here's what's going on with placement exams. So a lot of the same information is also repeated there if you wanted to refer back to it. So that'll pop up on every page on there. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to frantically write all these things down as you go through, that there is reference to that throughout the presentation. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and begin. First of all, that question, what are placement exams? So basically, the results that you get from a placement exam, they're used by departments to be able to determine what is the best course for you to be taking in that particular area in order for you to be successful. So, I like to say that if you do really well on a placement test, and I'm just gonna use math as an example, and you place into calculus, but your real comfort is really only on kind of an algebra level, you could take the calculus course, but you're probably going to struggle in that course. So that's why placement exam gets a good assessment of where you would be starting off in those particular areas. So some departments are going to require you to take a placement exam before even enrolling in the course. Others will also look at it and say, we're trying to do the placement exam to determine what level you should start with. So in some cases, those don't always match up, but the placement exam is to get a better idea on a more standardized level of where students are going to be able to start off in that particular subject area. So needs to say, because of the fact that some of the enrollments are restricted to having the placement test done, we will tell you that placement exams should be taken prior to the start of your first semester at UH Manoa. So here's a list of the departments that we have that are requiring or they need some type of placement for their courses. And that includes math, or the next one is physics. And in that area, the physics area actually uses the math placement for their placement. Next, we have the chemistry. So I talked about the pre-chemistry assessment. Then in our language areas, we have our East Asian languages and literatures, our Indo-Pacific languages and literatures, our Kauailani Center for Hawaiian Language, our languages and literatures of Europe and the Americas, our linguistics department, which controls our sign language area, and then the English Language Institute, which is for English as a second language students within there. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I'll just kind of go through each of these areas to give you an idea of what some of the details are for them. So with that, I'll begin with mathematics. So for math, there's a link there for our placement exam information. So that'll be dropped into the chat for you all as well. And essentially what happens on here is you have to have minimum scores in order to be able to start at a particular math level. So the example I used at the beginning, if you're in a program where they assume that you're going to start on a calculus level or a higher level math, then it's going to tell you here's where you're going to actually start off on based upon what you've done. So some of the things that can happen is in some cases, you can use ACT or SAT scores, or even some of the AP scores as well, to be able to determine where you would start and have, be able to skip the placement exam. So those I'll go into in a little bit more detail in the next slide. But just to let you know that some of those tests that you've already taken may kind of get you in the right direction. And then the next link that's on there, which is going to be dropped for you, that's going to show you exactly what those kind of alternatives are to the different placement exams on the different tests that you may have already taken. And then lastly, you may have heard it for like other areas, or if you're a transfer student at your current school, but the math department doesn't accept scores from the compass or AccuPlacer or other sometimes more localized exams and their scores to be able to determine what your placement is going to be. And now the rules within here, as far as when you can take it, you can take the math placement exam once during each of the 3 periods that they offer it. So basically it's during around the registration time. So March 16th through June 15th. The next time period goes from the June 16th until October 15th. And the third time period is from October 16th through March 15th. So in other words, you've got kind of one shot at taking that. If you wanted to retake it, you've got to wait as little as 1 day, depending on what day the year you're taking it, but as much as maybe 3 months that you have to wait to be able to take the exam again. So just keep that in mind. There are some things on that first link that I shared out with you that kind of go over a little bit about things that are going to be contained on the test, so that you can have a little, not necessarily preparation, but reminder of information that you've already learned before that you're going to be tested on within that placement exam. Because we want you to be able to perform as well as possible on it, but also not to have it over place you as far as what you would actually be able to be successful in when you're done. So these are what the scores look like. So essentially, you've got a part 1, a part 2, and the BMAT area. So those are kind of the 3 scores that you have from that. So needless to say, on part 1, for any of the math placements, you can see that you're looking at a 14 is a minimum score for any placement in here. Then when you move to the part 2 part, the amounts kind of go up a little bit as far as what the scores are and what level math you might be able to take as a result. And then third, the BMAT is another piece of it that can give you a sense of what those scores are and where you can start on it. So pretty straightforward. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, for a math placement, you want to look at your major in particular, and you can talk with your academic advisor about that to be able to determine what level do I need to have for my program. And if you notice on some of those, they do have some courses that are not specifically math courses. So you see some physics, atmospheric science, earth science, oceanography, biology. It's because those courses require you to have a certain level of math knowledge in order to be able to take the course. So that's why they require a particular placement, even though they're not specifically math courses. It's because those courses have a math component that they want to make sure students are prepared to be able to get into there. So then it moves us on to very similarly the physics area. So under physics, as I mentioned, they use actually the math placement to determine where you start. So same deal on this. They have some ability to be able to use some test scores to be able to determine where you're starting off in as far as the math level goes. But essentially they're prerequisites to taking their physics courses. So in order to take the Physics 151, which is one of the first physics courses you can take, it's asking for a C or better grade in 140, which for us is pre-calculus with trigonometry. If we're trying to figure out subject-wise what that covers. Or that you complete 215 or higher as well. So, and then this is where the math placement may come in, because it says that if it has not been completed at all and you haven't done a math course, then they use the placement exam to be able to have the minimum scores in order to be able to start there. So again, it says part 1, you need the 14, of course, and part 2, you would need a 10 on that placement test in order to be able to figure out where you can start on those levels. And then all of the other physics courses that we have require that you complete the actual math courses in order to be able to have that prerequisite to be able to take the specific course requirement. So We rarely have students who are going to start at a level higher than the 151 or that first level math course or first level physics course to begin with. So it usually isn't a big issue on that point, because it would usually be that you start on that first physics course and you take a appropriate math course as well. So you'd have that math prerequisite for the next level. Um, so that's kind of where we're starting off on all those. But you can see the physics courses are very dependent on what you're doing from a math standpoint. So then that brings us to the chemistry area. So um, if a student wants to take chemistry 131, 161, or 171, which are kind of our first part of the chemistry courses there, um, you need to do a pre-chemistry assessment. And basically, you need to have the appropriate passing score on that in order to be able to start at that particular level. So a little bit different here as far as the frequency, in that you can take the placement exam twice, or the pre-chemistry assessment twice, during that enrollment period. And then it has to be at least 24 hours apart. So a good example on that is if we're looking at, this period that you take the exam and something unexpected happens and you realize you only got partially done, and then something came up and you had to leave, so your score just ends up being, a really, really low score on there. You can still retake it. You just have to wait at least 24 hours before you take that test again, and you can only take it twice during that period. And that period is from the 1st of March through August 27th. So the other things to note on this is that within the pre-chemistry assessment, it's important to know that you need to have a calculator with you, and that you should also be having the periodic table there as well. So, and on the link that is there below, that's going to get dropped into the chat here, it also is going to show you what types of things can count for that. In fact, I believe it even has like a version linked in there that will have a periodic table in case you don't have one readily available on there. So these are the scores that you would need to have. So in order to take the 131 course, the minimum score you need is an 8. If we then move up to the 161 course, the minimum score that you need is a 16. Or that, you have a C or better grade on the 131 or 151 course for chemistry. And then also the 161 you can take if you have the AP chemistry and you have a score of three on that area. Then we jump to the next level, which is a Chem 171, and that would require a score of 20 on there. Same thing, a little bit differently though. For 161, if you did complete a course like that and got a B, then you can take the 171. Or if you did take the AP score and get AP test and get a score of 4 or 5, then you're able to start immediately into that 171 course. So already with just those 3 tests on there, you're probably starting to look at it and say, wow, that was a little bit confusing on what's going on here. But what's important on all of this is that you touch base with your advisor to see what is it that you need to really focus on, or is there a specific level course that you need to take for your program? So in an area like what I deal with a lot, which is arts, languages, and letters, I'm just going to use, an area like English. They may not be worried about, are you taking a specific chemistry course within there? Because for that requirement, we may not even require a specific course. We may just require you to complete a science. So it's good to talk to an advisor to clarify that as far as what is actually required for your major and what level you need to meet that at. And then of course, if you're scoring below an 8, obviously you haven't passed at that. And then their suggestion is, again, to focus on some more of the math skills to be able to do better on it and retake the exam at a later time. All right, so that deals with kind of the math science area, which then brings us into the languages area. So many of the majors on our campus require completion of Hawaiian or second language through the 202 level proficiency. Um, so that, for the most part, for a student starting from the very beginning, means you're taking 101, then 102, then 201, then 202 to get through that sequence. Now, we understand that students will look at this and say, that's great, but I've already taken 3 years of Japanese in high school. So where does that put me at? And what can I start at? So this is where placement exams may make sense to take to determine what level can you start at. Because if you are looking at that sequence there and you're starting at a 201 level, then since the requirement in this case is only that you have through the intermediate level, you may only need to take 201 and 202 to complete that and not have to take all 4 courses to be able to complete that requirement. Now, it is important to know that this requirement, although it's pretty standard for the university, different colleges have different ways of interpreting that requirement, meaning some of them have some alternatives that are available on there. So again, always important to talk with your advisor to be able to determine, do I need to take these 4 courses or this intermediate level of language in order to be able to meet this requirement? And again, it's because some programs have some alternatives to be able to complete this requirement. But it's best to talk with an advisor in that area who can give you the best idea of what the alternatives may be if there are any. So with that, I'll kind of go by department because this is where it kind of varies a little bit, is that each of the languages has kind of a different interpretation of what needs to be done within here. So first are East Asian languages and literatures. So within this department, they have our Chinese, our Japanese, and our Korean languages. So if there's no prior experience, and this is really the case with every language, if you don't have any prior experience, you can just jump into the 101 and that's fine. There's no restrictions to be able to get in that course. Now, what is important on here is that even if you have college credits for that language, they still are requiring you to take the placement exam. And the reason for that is just simply because East Asian languages and literatures, their department, they have found that although it may look like it's also a first year course on a particular language, a lot of times that doesn't match up with where they're at on the university's treatment of that course. So if you had a year of, again, I'll point out Japanese, if you had a year of Japanese, then you would think I can jump straight into the 201 course. However, it depends on what you learned in that class, and that's where it kind of varies across the country as far as what level they actually get into and whether or not that's appropriate for you to jump into that second year or not. If I give you a quick anecdote from here, I took a year of Japanese during my last year of college. If you asked me after that to take 201, I would say I might need to go back all the way to 101 for that matter, because that was the extent that I felt like I learned the information in the classes. I didn't do poorly in them. I got B's in the courses, but at the same time, what I felt confident with and my ability to move forward was definitely limited in my own experience. So that's one of the reasons why they're asking for that better understanding of the language and a better assessment of where you'd start off with. So again, there's a link for it that's going to be dropped in there that brings you to the East Asian Languages and Literatures Department to talk about what the placement is and when they do those tests. So some of them have specific dates, and this applies to all the languages. Some have specific dates that they offer the tests. Others have a period of time that you can do it, and especially now there's a number of online options where they just need to know when you're taking it, not necessarily that you have to take it at a specific time. So I will say that one thing that I did want to mention for an exception is if there's anybody who has taken the 101 or East Asian languages at a UH college. So whether it is West Oahu or maybe Hilo or any of our community colleges for that matter, any other UH institution, those courses, if they come in, you do not need to take the placement to go to the next level course. So they do accept kind of our own UH system schools to be able to allow you to move on to that next level. All right. So generally, a lot of the times that are available for them are during the summer. So during July and August. With any of these language courses, a lot of times if you're trying to figure out, so what do I start with? A lot of times I'll say, sometimes it's helpful just to register for a course and then do the placement. And then if that places you higher, then move to that higher level course. Because I think that's probably an easy way to at least have that placeholder of having a course registered for, even though you might be able to potentially go to a higher level course. All right, so then that brings us to our Indo-Pacific languages and literatures. And within here, this department really, the area that they focus on that they have placements for is through our Filipino and our Ilocano languages. So within both of these, if you want to start beyond a 101 level, then there are a couple of folks that you can contact. So if you're looking at Filipino or Tagalog, then you can contact on there Jason, who is one of the faculty there who does the assessments for it. And then just below that, you're going to see a link also to be able to see how to contact them or how to learn a little bit more about that program. And then again, there's an individual there as well to be able to deal with Ilocano placement. So you can contact either of them directly to be able to arrange a time for them to do that actual placement with you. They basically need to know when that's happening and, so that they can kind of set the parameters time-wise and things like that for you to take those exams and get back to them, especially now since these things are being done in an online format. And then of course, if you do have previous coursework, as long as it has been evaluated and comes in as equivalent to one of our courses, then for that language, then you can move to that next level. So if it came in and said, this is equivalent to our Ilocano 101, then it'd be a matter of, then you've already got the ability to move into the 102 course within there. All right, so then the next area after that is our Hawaiian language. So our Kauai Huilani Center for Hawaiian Language, they are also one of those, and the link in here is going to give you the email address that you would send to be able to arrange for an exam. And again, same deal, if you are looking at anything above a 101 level, that's where you would need to do a placement exam for it. And they can kind of arrange that and set you up with exactly what needs to be done for it. But they just kind of individually arrange it for all of their students looking at starting at a higher level there. The next department that we have is our languages and literatures of Europe and the Americas. And the languages that we have here are French, German, Russian, and Spanish. So with any of these, if you want to start beyond the 101 level, then you would take a placement exam for that. So each of them gets arranged with a particular individual. So for French, Dr. Huss is the one that does the placements. For German, Dr. Awashka does the placements there. For Russian, it's Dr. Kostasaya that does those placements. And then for Spanish, it's Dr. Aranda that does those placements. So you can contact them directly through those emails to be able to set up a time to be able to do those placements. Again, these vary. Sometimes it's a matter of some more formal things that need to be done in a time restraint. Some of them is just a matter of setting up a time to be able to work with them more directly on determining your level and your placement. So again, the next link below that will then show you the information for what you need to do for those placement exams. Right now, everything is being done individually as far as our placement exams for these languages. And just as I said with other ones, any previous coursework that you've done for college coursework, if it's evaluated as equivalent to one of our courses, then that gives you the prerequisite to be able to start at the next level. All right, so then the next area is our linguistics department, who runs the American Sign Language, the ASL area. And if you're wanting to go again beyond the 101 level on there, then you do need to do a placement exam. And you do that with an ASL faculty member. So I believe that right now when they do that, they're doing it through like kind of what we're dealing with now. So like a video chat to be able to kind of see your ability to show your knowledge of American Sign Language. So in doing that, we have two faculty. So we've got both of their emails listed here. And what you can do is contact them directly. And I would actually say contact them both. So send one message to both of them saying, I feel like I will start higher than a 101 level of ASL. Can I do a placement with you? And they can kind of set up the time. And the reason why I say both of them is because if you catch one, then it might be a matter of, oh, your schedule and their schedule doesn't quite match up. If you put them both on there, then you know that one of them will be able to find some time to be able to match up with your availability as well. And again, any previous coursework that has been evaluated as the equivalent course, you can move on to that next level as well. So I guess one of the things that I will kind of point out here with all of these is also to pay attention to what your, for those of you who are transferring courses in, what your transcripts say as far as your unofficial transcript and how the course is coming into UH Manoa. So what you might see is you might see, oh, this course that I have is just coming in as a lower level elective, but not a specific like, you know, Spanish 102. So knowing that, that might be something you know, and you can kind of bring up those questions when you're looking at the placement exam. And then lastly, I have on here is our English Language Institute, which deals with students who are looking at English for a second language. And then within there, that all the students who are doing English as a second language, and there's some exemption things, but that's going to be listed on the website that we're going to list for you as well. But they need to take a placement exam to determine what level of English courses they're going to have in order to be able to place appropriately there. And it really deals with kind of listening, speaking, and reading and writing, of course, of information. So that's why all those courses are kind of related to each other as far as what you may need to take. And then again, if you are, this is mainly for international students. If you're an international student, then you can contact the UHM ELI directly for their email address, and then be able to contact them if you've got questions about that or wondering where you actually would start off on that. All right, so I've given a bunch of information on here. The last thing I'll talk about under the language area is a language waiver. So some folks may be looking at it going, you know, that's great, and I didn't take any courses like this before, but I know this language really well. I've been speaking it my whole life, so why do I need to take the language requirement? So in these cases, a lot of times a language waiver can be granted by that particular language. And there aren't many languages that we aren't able to assess in some way. So if you feel that you're proficient in that language area, what they can do is a lot of times they'll do kind of a one-on-one interview and discussion and things like that with a native speaker here as well, or somebody who knows the language well here, who can determine whether or not you would be waived of having to complete this requirement. So in some cases, I would like to say any of the languages that we already talked about, those same contacts are who you would reach out to. If it's any language that wasn't on our list of them, you can still ask us, and I would say touch base with your academic advisor, because they can guide you to the right person and try to find somebody who can do an evaluation for you. So I would probably say in the last 6 months, you know, I've dealt with a student who was seeking a waiver because their language of knowledge was Flemish. And another student whose um, native language was Palau. So it was a matter of finding the individuals within our faculty who know that well, and they can then set up that ability to determine a language waiver. So again, that's an option if you feel like this is your native language and you already know it, very well, and you shouldn't have to take a second language on there. All right, so that is all that I had for the presentation. I wanted to highlight a few other things for you all just so that you know about them. First of all, we have a new student advising online workshop, and that should be opening up pretty soon here. And basically, it's got a lot of video tutorials, some virtual modules that you can do. It's self-paced, so you can, fly through it in a weekend if you're really ambitious on there. You can take through the whole summer to try to figure all that information out if you want. But there is a link to it here that we're also going to drop in the chat for you. So feel free to take a look at it that way if you want to. Again, there is an entire section of this that is dedicated to placement exams as well. Maybe to determine, is this something that I need to do, or does this apply to me based upon whatever major I have or whatever direction I'm going on my courses. So it does address placement exams as a particular module within there. So just highlighting that for you all. And then I also want to highlight something that we have coming up on the 15th of May, which is we have an advising day that we're doing on the 15th of May. So it gives an opportunity for new students to be able to connect with various entities of the university that may be associated with advising. So you may get to at least know who your advisors are and kind of see what maybe questions they have on there. We'll be doing some presentations during that event as well. And most of our colleges have signed up to also be there and be able to provide a little bit more detailed information specific to their college that may be helpful. So again, it just may be helpful to connect with them, knowing that with new students, you've got your registration date coming up here pretty soon. It gives you the opportunity to maybe connect with somebody about some of those general questions that you might have going into the advising period. So again, it's on the 15th, so I'm just highlighting that for you.
Thanks so much, Derek. Appreciated. There was definitely a lot of amazing information. So kind of now entering the Q&A portion of the webinar. Students, I know we've gotten over 100 questions asked, so you're going to try to get to as many as we can. Naturally, if you guys do have questions after, please be sure to contact your academic advisor. So speaking of the academic advisors, Derek, how would students know who their academic advisor is and what kind of things do they go to an academic advisor for?
Yeah, so on that, your academic advisor, you may have one, you may have multiple people. And that's because certain areas, it'll be kind of your school, your college that'll do it. And if you didn't know, the university is broken down into smaller units of colleges, which within there have departments. So they can get smaller, they can get larger within there, but a lot of times that bigger unit of a college or school, you will have somebody assigned that you can go to there. But you may also have somebody assigned that is there to help out specifically with your major. So you might have a couple of folks on there. I would like to say that if you go and if you search for our advising guide on our website, it actually shows you, and you can kind of look at the different colleges that are on there and look at your particular major to see, who your contacts are for advising within there. And that can be really helpful as far as being able to know who to talk to or where to get a hold of them.
Cool. So yeah, I went ahead and put that link in the chat. So students, if you have a question on who your academic advisor is, go ahead and check out that link. Like Derek mentioned, it is kind of divided up by major and college. So be sure to look at what major you are. It'll list it under there. So kind of going more, just refreshing on the information about the timeline. When is typically registration for students? And is there a specific time period that they should be taking these placement exams?
Yeah, so I would say that, as soon as you are ready to take the placement exams, you should take them. So if you're thinking about it now, you should start figuring out when to arrange a time to be able to take those. As far as registration goes, for new students, registration is going to occur for you all in May. So, or I'm sorry, we're in May. So a little later on in this month. So obviously it's coming up pretty quickly here. Um, so that we would want to make sure that you kind of know those dates. After the initial semester, the registration periods, as far as when you register for classes, tends to be in the beginning of November and then also in the beginning of April. So, it's a little bit earlier than what we're seeing right now, but then that way you have enough time to be able to get that done before that term ends, that you already have everything set up for the next term after that.
Okay. And just a reminder for students, when you guys are contacting your advisors and starting to plan out those courses and such, please make sure to use your hawaii.edu email when contacting them, just because they want to make sure that, they'll be able to look up your information a lot easier that way versus a random Gmail or AOL account, which I don't think most people have AOL anymore for students that wise. But um, also, for the people, I know on like the advising guide, I've seen a few questions come up asking, because a lot of the departments will show like a specific link to their website, but it doesn't show a specific person. So should students be registering for an appointment with like a general, just like an available time, or is there a specific person that they should be looking for?
So it depends on your particular area. So sometimes it's done that way because there, it may be a matter of there are multiple people in that office that can all meet with you, and they're all qualified to give you that information. There are other times where, again, I'm making this stuff up here as far as examples, but I am a specific uh, metals focus of materials science. So who am I supposed to meet with? And it might be like, oh, you need to meet with this specific person. So it depends on the specificity on there. A lot of times through some of the other things that we have, which are through our program sheets that we have at the university, they kind of list out what the requirements are, but on the back side where it talks about um, the major and details, it'll also give you a contact for who you should be contacting in regards to your advising, whether that is an individual or whether that's more of a general email address for that office that you can see anybody from.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So now kind of switching back to a little bit more about the timeline. I know, of course, you mentioned that registration is going to take place in May, and that's when it'll begin really for the incoming freshmen. I know ACE program just opened up theirs on Monday. And so when is the deadline for class registration? Is there a specific date and time? And do you have any recommendations on that?
So I guess I'm trying to interpret this correctly, and if I'm hearing deadline, it's when do I have to get registered by? Um,
Yeah.
and really, the deadline on it is it needs to be done before registration ends, which is the end of the first week of classes. So, but realistically, you don't want to wait that long to start registering. I would like to say get it done as early as possible. As you go through and see things, you might, even when you all are looking at classes, see things that are like, oh, that's a really cool course. Huh, why can't I get into it? And then realize, oh, that's because all the seats are already filled at this point. So that's the reason why the longer you wait, the more those classes fill up. So I like to say that when you're going through there, and if you look at if you're logged into your STAR account and you're looking under that GPS registration, it will show at a certain point, it'll list up on there in red for the upcoming semester when your date and time is that you can begin registering. Pay attention to that because I like to say is once it opens, you want to be able to get into your class as soon as possible after that. So um, I don't advocate it, but I will say that some students, it's a matter of even if you are in class in the middle of that time, do something to figure it out to maybe queue it up on your phone or something like that. So you don't have to be distracted from class, but you can just hit register and then get those courses added into your schedule because we want to make sure that you're in there as soon as possible. Because in the span of registration, we're looking at hundreds of students a day that are registering within a short period of time. So courses can fill up relatively quickly. So definitely take advantage of those things and be willing to kind of look at what your alternatives are. Everybody has their schedule that they love and that they want to, stick with. And, this is my ideal schedule. But the reality is sometimes that just doesn't work out because this course fills up and now you got to be able to call an audible, adjust it a little bit, but still know kind of what are the things that, these are your only options or you've got other routes that you could take
Absolutely. So students, if you are not a fan of, say, 8 a.m. classes, I highly encourage you to go ahead and take those exams as soon as you're ready. I can't tell you how many times I've had students contact me at the end of July, early August, being like, I finally just took my placement exams. What do you mean I have to take 8 a.m. classes? That's all that's available. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we told you to take the exams back in May. So students, don't procrastinate. We're here to support you anyway, but it's definitely better to do it sooner than later for sure. I agree. So kind of going into a little bit more, I know there's been some questions about STAR. So would you want to just refresh on exactly where students can find their exact time that they're available to register on? Because I know it's a little bit different for each person.
Yeah, so when you log into STAR, so when you're under your student record on STAR, on those tabs that are in kind of the upper leftish area of the STAR page, you're going to have one that says GPS registration. And then when you click on that, what it'll do is it'll show you each of the semesters and kind of what you've already completed or what is suggested for those terms to be able to take. Um, at the bottom right-hand corner of each of those semesters, if this semester is active, meaning, obviously we don't have next fall's courses already up there, but we do have this fall's courses up there to choose from. So it should have a little thing that says kind of add drop or register on there. So you can click on that to be able to see that. And right above that is where the little red mark shows on there. So I like to say that one of the first things that can be helpful when you get there, and it's just because it's easy to find, is when you're on STAR and you're logged in, if you go to the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a little thing that looks like a quotation box, like a little quote area. If you click on that, that gets to the help areas. The first video on the left of that help, when you open that up, goes over how to register, and that gives you a good idea of kind of how the basics work within STAR. So I think that can be a very helpful thing, and it can be something, because it's a YouTube video, that you can queue up and have available next to you while you're trying to do your registration yourself, because you can always pause it and rewind it, or move forward because you're past that point. So I think it's a very helpful resource for you to be able to see when you're trying to register for classes.
Yeah, definitely really helpful. It's the one great thing is we have so many different YouTube videos for pretty much everything now. Students, I know I posted it already in one of the links, but we are recording this. It will be posted on YouTube. So just a reminder that don't worry, you all will receive an email afterwards with a link on it. So kind of switching into a little bit more details about the placement exams is, I know this is different for every single exam, so you can't give exact answers, but are the placement exams only offered online, or are some of them available in person?
There are some that will be available in person. I don't know that any of them are actually scheduled right now to be in person. I believe that they are, some of the departments are having some options that they will have set up for like August to be able to do that. So essentially, as they start to have new people come in to the campus, that they might have the ability to do a placement there. Um, so for the most part, they're online based assessments that are happening right now.
And do all of the do all of the placement exams have fees, or is it only specific ones, or how does that work?
So if I am looking at them correctly, I don't think I've come across a single one of them that has a fee to it. The only place where you might see that is if you're getting into something very particular where they can't do a placement on it, which I don't think really exists. But if they weren't able to do a placement on it and they're like, well, we don't have anybody that can do that. So then they might need to refer out to another area or another institution or something like that to be able to get that assessment on there. That'd probably be more so under the language waiver side of things than it would be under an actual placement, because we have an idea of placement for any of the languages that we do offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know this, of course, is different for each placement exam as well, but is there some place to help? Is there a link that students can go to help prep for these placement exams? Is it going to be on that same links that we posted, or?
Yeah, it would be on the same links on there. So it'll give you an idea of what you need to know. So whether it's something as uh, detailed about these are the tenses that you need to know for verb conjugation in our language, or whether it's just a matter of, we're looking at vocabulary, we're looking at kind of use of the language. So it might vary on there, but that is something that when you reach out to those areas to kind of plan and set that up, um, those that have kind of established tests already may have a resource page linked to there that says, here's how you can learn a little bit more about it. Others, where it's like contacting somebody individually, you can always ask, well, what is it that I need to be preparing for this? And they're pretty open to be able to say, hey, it's going to cover this, this, and this. So that's what we're going to try to find out. And that's something you can just ask the individuals that you're arranging that with.
Okay. And then for registering for the placement exams, they'll just go to that same link, correct? Those same links, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So for students who are wondering what those links are, I went ahead and put the general placement exams link into the chat. So feel free to go ahead and refer back to that. Great questions. So then kind of switching more into this, into the college credits. So for those students who are either transfer students or have previous college courses, or maybe they're planning to take courses this summer, I know there's been a lot of questions about that. So would you be able to give like just a brief overview of if transfer students will need certain placement exams, what's your advice to them as an incoming transfer student or a dual enrollment student?
Yeah. So definitely for if you, again, just to give you a sense, if the course is going to come in as a particular course requirement, so it's coming as an equivalent course, for most of the areas, with the exception of the East Asian languages, you can just go into the next appropriate course for that. So know that that is already in place. For others, again, you really want to look at what, if anything, your transcripts have been already evaluated as. So if they don't show the equivalent, then it might be a couple of things that you need to. I will tell you right now, one huge helpful thing can be to get a hold of those, a syllabus for the courses. Because if they want to look at it in more detail, I can guarantee that the question they're going to ask is, do you have a syllabus for this? So that we can look at it in more detail to see what was actually covered in that course and is it equivalent to something that we have going on our end.
Yeah, absolutely. So transfer students or even the high school students who have done some kind of dual enrollment type course, please, 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 a reminder to send in your official transcripts if you guys have not sent them in already. I know I have had tons of transfer students who haven't sent them in. So our admissions office, basically once we receive your transcript, we will go ahead and evaluate your transfer credit evaluation. So even the seniors in high school who have college courses, make sure not just send us your high school transcript, make sure to send us in those official college transcripts to receive college credit. So perfect. Now, I know we keep getting a lot of very specific questions based on what major or based on what, if they've taken an AP or IB. So I know a common question that we often get, and you guys receive as well, is if students are planning to take AP exams later, or, it's in the month of May, they take them, they're not going to be receiving their scores until July. So what would you recommend to those students who are taking, say, that AP Calc class, and how that'll affect their math placement exam for now?
One of the things that I mentioned earlier applies here, which is there a deadline that you have to get your course registered for? So we know that that happens, and we know that students will have things that change midway through. In fact, other than what happens in May when registration happens, usually about mid-July we get a whole another slew of registration that happens, and it's because folks are saying, oh, I got credit for that, let me drop this one and then retake this one instead, or I have this alternative course on there. So a lot of times I will say, you'll just make those adjustments on there. If it's something that you are able to have an alternative course kind of lined up on there, it's good to have that ready to go in case you do get exempted from something, because of an AP score. The other thing that's important to know is a lot of times you know for yourself. Um, yeah, I did not do well on that exam, even though I took it. So, maybe you can be like, so it'd be a blessing if anything, if that pops in and I got credit for it. But if not, it's not a surprise, and I might as well just register for the course. So, there's those type of things, and there's also the aspect of, oh, I feel I aced that thing, I'm ready to go, and I can move on and take. I'm prepared to be able to look closely so I can get a higher level course that I take once I get those scores in.
Perfect. And just reiterating for those who are asking questions about the sending in transcripts, you only need to officially send it in once the semester is completed. I know some people have started completing up their semester. However, if you are needing, say credits transferred to us in as a prerequisite. So say if you took, English 100 or so, I know it's pretty similar in all colleges, and you need that as a prereq for a different course for fall. I would recommend then sending it in sooner than later. That way you can go ahead and register and not have to wait until the semester's over. So you would basically be sending us a transcript now and then sending us an official one once the official grades are in. And then we'll go ahead and update your transfer credit evaluation with the spring classes you've taken thus far as well. But up to you on how you want to do it. I usually recommend sending it in twice if you want to, but it's really a matter of if those classes are prerequisites for others. And so kind of switching more over into, say if somebody does place into like a higher level course, like a higher math course or a higher chemistry course, but then they're kind of like, I'd rather take a lower course. What is your opinion on that?
So if you get placed into it from the placement exam, then that's usually a good assessment of this is where you should be starting off on the course. So um, if I look at something like math skills on there, um, easiest way for me to put it is if you can't add and subtract, you're probably not going to be able to multiply and divide. So a lot of things build on each other on there. So if you were getting those higher level questions right, it means you have the skills for the lower. It just may be rusty. So a lot of times you can still be able to go into that higher level and succeed on it. If you're really struggling in that, then it's something really to make sure that you touch base with the instructor of the course if you're getting into the course and finding it a lot more difficult, or this is not what I expected, this is not there. And a lot of times they can recommend to have you drop down on a course to be able to take another course on there, like a prerequisite course to be able to get to where the course you're originally in at. So, that's the whole point of it, is to be able to, adjust things if needed. But that's really at the determination of the instructor. Now, the whole point of it is to be like, if I am a native speaker of Spanish and I place into Spanish 202 and I'm like, that's great. I'm going to take 101. Well, I can tell you right now, everybody else in that 101 class is not going to like you, because they're going to be like, why the heck are they in this course? They're way above what we're learning on here. So a lot of times, the instructors can have the discussion to saying, this is not appropriate for you to be in this course. We either need to move you up or move you down to get you to the right level for your success. And really it is for that, for your success on there in the course.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're kind of running on time, but I know there was a lot of questions on what happens if a student takes the test, they did not do as well as they wanted to, and they really do want to retake it. I know each placement test does a little bit differently, but what's your best advice to the student?
So if you've taken it and you feel like I placed higher than what I should or what I feel is
Oh, if they
necessary,
did worse than they thought they would.
they did worse. Okay, so
Yeah.
if they did worse on that, then talk to the department that was offering that too, to see about what are the rules. Some of them, like some of the math science areas, they indicated what kind of the retake options are on there. But for the languages, they're all done individually by that language area. So you can talk with them to say, I don't feel like it was a good reflection of it. I didn't do that well. It was a bad day or whatever. Is there a way that I could kind of look at what's going on here? And they can kind of assess that and work with you to try to see whether or not they have you retake the test or whatever it may be, to be able to replace within there.
Okay. And then I know a lot of students have been asking about the placement exam times and such, but I know each one is really its own unique thing. So definitely, students, if you guys have more questions about the exact placement exam, how the structure is, all of that, really go ahead and check out that placement exams link that I went ahead and put into the chat. And also, if you have questions regarding whether you need a placement exam or you have a special circumstance with AP exams, IB exams, transfer credits, all of that, we definitely encourage you guys to go ahead and reach out to your academic advisor. They are definitely amazing and have so much knowledge. For example, like Derek has provided us with so much amazing knowledge here today. And so just a reminder as well, you're going to go ahead and post this recording webinar on our YouTube page, and we'll go ahead and email out the link. But yeah, I want to say mahalo nui loa to Derek as well as Leilani. We appreciate everyone so much for your stepping in and being able to help out with all of these questions here today. Students, don't forget that all of those links are went ahead and they are being placed into the chat. So definitely feel free to go ahead and copy and paste them if you would like. And then, of course, if you guys have any other questions, be sure to reach out to us here at Admissions or especially academic advising. So I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your day. And aloha.